Okay, welcome along to the last video in the series about support portals for connectivity teams. It's awesome to have you. Building the business case, this is a tough one. As we all know, the answer to any sort of request for unbudgeted spend is always no. So how can you justify the case for a support portal? If you're already in business, the problem gets even harder. We've lived without one for this long, so why do we need one now? I've talked at length in this video series about the tangible benefits that a portal could deliver, but when it comes to putting it down on paper, the biggest challenge is explaining this value, given that there are so many unknowns, and given that you might not have anything tangible to show or demo to decision makers. So let's step back for a minute though and discuss revenue versus costs. As we all know, profit equals revenue minus cost. So simple maths would tell us that adding $1 extra to revenue should be just as attractive to business owners as the business saving $1 of cost. In other words, there are two levers here, revenue and cost, and both would increase profit by the same amount. Unfortunately, in our world of financial services, this mathematical equation doesn't actually hold true, at least at a perception level. Perception is different. Firms always talk about revenue as opposed to profit, and therefore they only really tend to consider one of these levers, revenue. This means that they back projects which have the potential to add revenue, provided the cost of doing so is less than they actually stand to make. And this is the reason why, your corporate marketing team never has to justify the cost of your corporate website or paying for that conference stand, or why your sales guys don't need to justify the expenses in the same way that you might be being asked to do for Portal, because all of their costs are seen as a potential path to revenue. Portals are for existing customers, and so the adrenaline high of signing a new customer as a result of doing something is gone, and it becomes this boring clinical discussion about guaranteed cost savings. You're being asked to do almost the impossible, to put a money figure on a general feeling of saving time. You're being set up to fail. What's worse, the only way to demonstrate a real financial cost saving from being more efficient is to suggest that management can fire somebody, which really isn't our goal here. And so you're stuck. What do you do? The point of going through this background is to let you view the problem from the shoes of the decision maker. What might resonate with them? While they ask for financial cost savings, giving to them is almost impossible and leads to that dreadful outcome that Johnny might be let go. So we need to change the headline. We need to talk about the benefits that management do see value on, the revenue side of the equation. Now, typically decision makers come from one of either a sales background or an IT background, so we need to emphasize the benefits that they care about that can arise from a portal. If your decision maker is sales focused, then talk about a perception of higher quality, better customer service, faster time to market, easier to roll out innovative new functionality, faster and easier to cross-sell customers on existing products and services, better internal tracking and reporting. These are all things that their gut will tell them are valuable, but which you can't really be expected to put a dollar value on because they can't put a dollar value on it. They all contribute to this better idea of a quality, market-leading premium service that's squarely on the revenue side of the equation and should therefore resonate strongly. In this case, I'd also recommend looking at your competition and asking your customers for their views. One of the most powerful motivators for any sales-oriented person to champion a change is the fear of falling behind the competition. And remember what I said all the way back in video 1, it's hard to imagine a world where support portals are not the default in the future. So do you want to be the first to deliver one, or do you want to be the last to deliver one? Because you will deliver one eventually. If your key decision maker is an IT or operations person, then emphasize increasing pipeline automation and self-service, reduce manual intervention and errors, better issue tracking and more predictable operations, flexible frameworks that increase automation over time, decoupling processes to allow modernization and becoming more agile. If you're recommending a vendor solution, then also talk about reserving staff for high priority internal tasks and accessing external resources for non-differentiating work like a portal, as well as faster delivery times by using pre-built components. So this is the general approach I'm recommending. Don't jump into the numbers, but instead paint a big picture first and clearly explain the service and the operational benefits that a portal can unlock. By scene setting in this way, the portal isn't seen as a pure cost reduction project, but an important, valuable part of better customer service. You still need numbers, of course, just that they are secondary. So what sort of numbers do you need to collect? Well, you need estimates of the costs and you need estimates of the savings. All of these numbers are going to be vague. So focus on orders of magnitude and not dollars and cents. Let's work on costs first. And given that buy versus build is almost certainly going to be a consideration, let's think about a framework for comparing that. An initial internal build will consume a variety of resources. Business analysts are going to write the requirements. Development writes code, QA tests. Marketing should have their views on look and feel, and there'll be some sort of infrastructure resources to host it and set it all up. Try to estimate effort in man-months, not dollars, for each category. Here are some estimates that we have for an internal build of a basic portal from scratch. This is what we expect customers to put down. This table tracks effort and not elapsed time, of course. And so the final step is to guesstimate the elapsed time of the overall project. Okay, so what about the cost of an external supplier? Well, that's just a case of asking them, of course, and I'd really recommend doing that before having the internal budget conversation. The reason for that is that niche financial services software licenses can be eye-watering in size, and your management might incorrectly assume that the same is true here as well. Your goal is to surprise management with a low number before they become scared of an imaginary six-figure number and kill the whole project. So stack the vendor numbers against the internal estimate. The vendor implementation fee will replace the development and QA boxes. Infrastructure costs might actually be included in vendor annual costs. Marketing should still be involved, probably to the same level, but the BA time could change a lot. It might increase dramatically if you have to explain your domain to a generic development firm, or it might dramatically drop if you're dealing with a firm like FixSpec. So this lets us compare the initial build. But we also need to track ongoing costs. Vendors should be able to estimate ongoing license costs pretty accurately. Since this is likely to be a long-term vendor relationship, be sure to ask what the fees include and whether they're fixed, index-linked, or whether they have the right to whack them up in the future. Remember that both vendor and in-house build scenarios should have some level of ongoing functional enhancement to them over time. It's all about iteration, remember. So put in some allocated capital expense budget each year for an ongoing change. Comparing just the first year isn't a fair comparison. For the internal build, I'd recommend allocating a simple fraction of the year one cost for this. Be sure to talk to any potential vendor about how ongoing enhancements are charged and delivered. Okay, so now we have a picture of costs for buy versus build. Perhaps these aren't precise figures, but it should be possible to allow you to make some sort of decision based on purely on the orders of magnitude of these numbers. So let's switch to quantifying savings then. As I mentioned before, this is a really tall order because a portal saves a lot of people a lot of small amounts of time. Adding all of that up and putting a dollar figure on it is almost impossible. So instead of ignoring this elephant in the room, point it out to management explicitly. Explain to them that what they're asking you to do is simply too hard. Make them understand and focus on the non-monetary benefits, such as using existing headcount more efficiently and offering a better service to customers. That said, you should be ready with some clear examples of tasks that your team has identified as suitable for automation or self-service through a portal. Thinking back to our profit discussion earlier, you should present these as benefits and not as cost reductions, but positive service improving benefits. So for example, instead of talking about hours saved per week updating internal tracking spreadsheets, talk about how the timeliness and the accuracy of those reports can improve, which let the sales team better identify upsell opportunities and to get customers live faster. Instead of talking about time saved answering the same customer question again and again and again, talk about the quality of customer service and how that's going to improve. How you can be more responsive to customers with more complex questions, perhaps. Instead of quantifying time that can be saved in a manual onboarding process, talk about the new possibility to onboard customers in parallel and get them to production faster. Instead of identifying headcount to let go, talk about delaying the need for team expansion or expanding the capacity of existing team members to let them take on more work. You can also talk about how new members will become more productive faster thanks to greater automation and tooling. If you present metrics to show how low value tasks can be automated, then always make sure that you also estimate how that is going to be reduced. So for example, how many phone calls, emails or tickets does the team handle today? How do you expect that number to change if you had a portal? How quickly are issues resolved today? How would that metric change if you had a portal? The key point with metrics is to always frame them as relative improvements as opposed to trying to turn them into a dollar savings number. One final thing to present is a list of jobs that are not being done today because people don't feel that they have time. This is often an overlooked source of benefit. By listing off all of these great ideas and tasks that are forever stuck in the to-do list but never actually get progressed, it's important. By freeing up time, a portal can help you finally get to those items and finally make progress on them. I know it's not the most sexiest of examples, but I often have people hand me a fixed spec and then immediately apologize for the fact it might not be accurate. A spec cleanup is always one of those to-do list items, but they never seem to have the time. Yet an inaccurate spec creates more work in the short term for both them and their customers. They keep re-answering the same question again and again and again, and the customers need to rework connections as they discover the errors. Okay, so this is a long video in a long series, so let me try to wrap this one up. Building a business case is hard. It's the primary reason why portal projects never see the light of day. It's not that a portal isn't a sound investment. Rather, management doesn't currently make the connection between a portal and new revenue. And it can't be easily justified as a cost reduction project either, and that's because the time saved is too difficult to measure. And so a portal needs to be presented in a different light. Before talking about savings, talk about the positive benefits, the things that everybody agrees in their guts are positive for both you and your customers. Better customer service, faster onboards, greater internal capacity, more automation. These are the themes that inspire your colleagues. With that scene set, you can then show management that the costs aren't as high as they originally feared, and assuming you're working with an external partner here, it won't drain your internal resources either. One final thought on this business case. A portal is one of those projects that is super easy to push off until next year because there is no driving mechanism. But the sooner you get started, the sooner you start to reap the benefits. And nobody really wants to be playing catch up against the competition, do they? That's it. Thank you for watching this mini-series. I hope you've got some great ideas and inspiration out of it. If you have any questions about anything that I've discussed in this mini-series or want any other type of help about your operations team, then please do reach out. We'd be very happy to help. If not, please like and subscribe this channel on YouTube and click the little notification bell to get up to date with all of the videos we're putting out. Hope to see you again soon.